Progtopia Podcast 079. Let's start a cult with the fierce and the dead. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Mark Ashby, and you have just made the best choice of your day, your week, maybe even your month. Because you're now listening to Progtopia, the prog rock, metal, and electronic music show that goes in-depth with artists both well-known and up-and-coming. This is where you'll hear their current and back catalog songs, as well as exclusive interviews that no one else has access to. You can find us on the web at progtopia.com, or facebook.com/Progtopia, or at Progtopia on Twitter. And you can always subscribe to and rate the show on iTunes. I thank you for spending the better part of the next hour of your life with me and some great music. If you're in a genre-bending instrumental band that resists easy classification, you might think that could hinder your prospects of success in a business that often demands that music be placed in a box labeled progressive, post-rock, punk, or any of a number of other arbitrary terms. But in the case of the UK's The Fierce and the Dead, it's actually worked largely to their advantage. No simple jam band here. Members Matt Stevens and Steve Clayton on guitars, Kevin Feasey on bass, and Stuart Marshall on drums have bridged the gaps between all the genres I named above and more, and it's led to playing at festivals and other gigs where they've gotten to perform in front of crowds that your average prog band doesn't reach, all without any vocals. That says a lot for the musicianship involved, and with their new EP Magnet just out in August on Bad Elephant Music, they've proven their status as cult favorites by selling out hard copies in the pre-order. I talk about that in the interview that follows with Matt Stevens, along with the inevitable King Crimson comparisons, the science that went into the concepts on their full-length album Spooky Action, and a lot more. So come on and join me. What harm could it cause? Let's start a cult with the fierce and the dead. Regular listeners of this show have to know that I won't pass up this question. The name The Fierce and the Dead, where does it come from?
We had a long discussion on this at one point. It sort of comes from, there was a phrase where all that remained was the fierce and the dead. But I'm not quite sure where it came from, really. It was something, I was trying to start a band about 5 years ago. It didn't really sort of come, probably no longer than that now, probably nearly 10 years ago. And we had that band name, and the only thing that was cool about that band was the band name, so we kept the band name. And it's sometimes quite hard to come up with an interesting band name. It just stuck. And, a lot of band names come and go, but Fierce and the Dead seem to really work, and people seem to remember it. Which is good. So, yeah, this doesn't really mean that much. But it might do eventually. I don't know.
As long as there's a story. That's all I care about.
There's a story. Yeah.
All right. Was the plan always to be an instrumental outfit?
Kind of. Well, it was. The plan was to record a song for one of my solo records, and that was probably as far as the plan went. And we were just improvising this thing, and we had that name, and we had this improvised music that sounded quite sort of... which was our first EP that we released 5 years ago, which was kind of krautrocky, psychedelic, Floydy, sort of punky type stuff. And it kind of worked with it. So it wasn't actually the intention to start a band. It was just me jamming with two of my friends, and that came out of it, and we gave it that name. So there was no grand plan, really. It was just, this is, the start of something, and the name, and it one of those happy coincidences, really.
Calling an EP Part 1, or, the long thing. Had you envisioned continuing with new parts through all your subsequent releases like you have been?
I had Part 1 and Part 3,
right.
And I'm not quite sure how they linked up. But it gradually sort of came together, and it was something that we quite enjoyed doing. And when we did part one, we suddenly realised that people wanted to hear part two, which we hadn't expected. And there's that story about, when Rush were doing the multi-part epics across the album and stuff. They had a similar thing where they didn't actually realise people would really want to hear it, but they did. So it was kind of like that with us. But we've actually really enjoyed developing it, and I listened to all of the parts together, and it does kind of work. And we're going to do like a big ending on probably the next album. We sort of finish the whole thing off. So we need to finish that story really. So and bring back some of those themes. But it's something we've really enjoyed doing.
You might scare people if you have something that you call the final part. Then they'll say, "Is Fierce and the Dead breaking up now that the parts are all over?"
Well, I think it's important to keep trying new ideas, and it's that thing, progressive versus prog, I suppose, that we're trying to. Which, to be honest, we're not even trying to be progressive. We're just trying to do music we love and we enjoy doing, and it makes us smile. And quite often that involves trying to do things that are kind of new, but only really new to us and the stuff that we enjoy. So we're always listening to new music, whether it's whether it's an old Rush record or it's a new Vessels album or a Napalm Death album or a Dead Kennedys album, or there's lots of different things we love. But it's just trying to bring all that into it really. So we're just trying to do stuff we like doing really.
Yeah, it's hard, I would imagine, for an instrumental band not to just sound like another jam band or like you're recycling ideas that all sound similar, because the vocal often is what people remember most. But the Fierce and the Dead seem to do it. So is that the secret of how you manage it, that you take all of these different styles and just kind of mold them into your own thing?
Kind of, and I think as well, we don't really do a lot of guitar solos, and it's all about the tunes, it's all about the melodies, it's all about we're not really trying to do flash playing. I've got friends one of my friends plays bass in a band called the Aristocrats, and they are a phenomenal band, and they're like an instrumental rock band, but their approach to it is so different to ours, which isn't a bad thing, because I think they're a fantastic band. I think they're brilliant, but and there's a band like Vessels, who are another instrumental rock band, but their approach once again is completely different. So, and they're completely dancey, song orientated, whereas we're just trying to play poppy sort of tunes within the context of, it's not pop, is it? But we're trying to do songs we like and songs that surprise us. And so, it's not we're not trying to show off our instrumental chops. I don't really care what people think about me as a guitar player. I'm only really interested in playing good tunes and playing parts that are interesting and that sound good as a band, really, which is kind of exciting to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And instrumental bands usually, if I can sort of editorialize here a little bit, they don't achieve the level of cult fandom that you seem to have done. So to what do you attribute that brand of success that you've had?
If I knew that, I'd do more of it. It's a weird thing that I think, once again, because it's not... it's kind of quite engaging music, and that we're not flashy, and hopefully there's a sense of humour in what we do, and we talk to a lot of people, and we're very engaged with the audience online, which I think makes a difference, and we talk to people a lot, and we're very, very grateful to the fan base we have. So I think we're this sort of we're the fluky band, really. Bands like us shouldn't really exist, but there are a lot. If you go to a festival like Art Tangent, which we played the other week, there was 5,000 people there, and which is just insane for a band like us. The tent we played in, there was like 800 people watching us, and there was all sort of it's a lot of these sort of post-rocky sort of bands. So we're not really a post-rock band. We don't really fit in there either. We don't fit in with the prog thing. There's elements of prog, there's elements of punk, there's elements of post-rock, there's elements of all these sort of things. And I wish I could say that we'd come up with this clever, really clever way of mixing all these influences together, but it wasn't. It was just stuff we liked, and we just all played it. And because we've been mates since school, it all came out like this. There was no grand plan. So I don't know why, really. I think it's just a case that we've been doing it quite a long time consistently, and we've been very engaged with the audience, and they've grown. The audience has grown with us, and if you'd said to me doing the first thing, one day you will be in a tent, there'll be 800 people watching me as you play this music, I would have laughed at you, but it's worked, and there's people coming to see us, and the records are selling, so it's I don't know.
being unclassifiable can sometimes work to your advantage, I suppose. Then that you can flit in between these different areas, and play these different kind of festivals. That you're not limited to one sort of thing. You can expand your audience that way.
Yeah, there's not many bands who could play like Art Tangent, which is like a post-rock festival, and then play a hippie, folky, weird festival like the other one we did this year. And then do Summer's End, which is a really prog festival. And we've kind of played, we've supported bands like, we've supported Frost, who are like neo-y sort of proggy, a fantastic band.
Right.
But we've also supported, very contemporary post-rock bands like we supported Her Name's Callum and people like that, who are, like the sort of beardy guy post-rock bands, and people like that. So it's an interesting one that we don't really fit in anywhere, but we kind of fit in a lot of different places. So I don't really know, really.
Whatever you did, it worked. So. Keep it up.
It worked. Let's not complain.
Right, yeah. Now, you were handling the guitar duties just fine, but, I mean, you brought on a second guitarist there after, a couple of releases. So what was the impetus behind bringing Steve on?
Well, a lot of it was that there was always multiple guitar parts on the records. And if you listen to my solo stuff, I'm really into doing overdubs. So I'm a big fan of people like Nels Cline and Johnny Marr. And Alex Lyson's, we does a lot of stuff. We overdubs guitar parts as well, although he only plays on his own live, and so does Johnny Marr. But a lot of those guys used a lot of overdubs in the studio, and I'm really into those sort of that Radioheady sort of thing with our parts as well, and the Fripp and Baloo thing as well. So there's a lot of that in there, and those the things I really like. So just to be able to play those parts together was why we got Steve in, and then having Steve there, he's such a fantastic musician. He's a great player. And he's also a really good sort of vibes person. He's a really upbeat, cheery person to have in the band. And I think that makes a big difference, really, because, if you've got people who are positive and into it and enthusiastic, I think that really lifts things. And sometimes that sort of chemistry thing is you miss out on that. But having Steve in the band, it was just, a really big, really important thing for me to have him there. So, no, he's been great, and he's a really great musician as well. So, yeah, no, it's really good to have a second guitarist in there.
Yeah. It's... keeps those Crimson comparisons going too. After when you get like the Fripp Baloo thing that you mentioned there.
But I must admit, the Fripp thing is I went to see King Crimson, the reunion, the gig recently, which is absolutely fantastic. And I've always been very wary of the whole Fripp. You're never going to do it as good as him. You're never going to be as good as Adrian Belew. You're never going to be as good as Robert Fripp. All you can do is try and do your own thing. And I think that's those guys aren't necessarily into death metal and to American American hardcore or post rock. So basically, I've spent a lot of time trying to do things that aren't the way Robert Fripp would do them, because he's so ubiquitous in this sort of music, especially in what he did on Frame by Frame and Starless and Red, and it's just so fantastic, isn't it? That you don't want to even go near that, you know what I mean? Because he's never going to be as good.
You do get your fair share of Crimson comparisons, though. I mean, does that tire you out after a while? Just there's another reviewer saying, King Crimson plus whatever.
Well, I mean, you think it's normally King Crimson meets an American punk band, so it'll always be Black Flag meets King Crimson. Or they'll choose an American punk band like Husker Du, and they'll, But it's very, I love King Crimson. So I mean, but it's there's been a few things we've done, and I thought, along the way that there's certainly an element of that. But I think on the more recent stuff, there's a lot of lots of different stuff really, and I don't think it's quite so much now, but I think obviously that's an influence, because they're a fantastic band. You'd be mad not to be influenced by them, so they're brilliant.
Why don't we go back to the beginning with an excerpt from that ongoing series, another section of which we might hear later. Who knows? Here's a part of Part 1. Spooky Action, that's the album, at least from what I can tell, that maybe started garnering you some real notice. I mean, you got a Prog Magazine nomination for Best New Act after that one. And based on the title of the album, I'm not surprised when I read in your bio that explorations of quantum physics informed some of the music on that album. Are there any particular scientists or scientific concepts that interest you the most? I mean, I'm kind of a science geek myself that way, so I'm just curious what influenced you there.
Well, Steve, our other guitarist, works. He's a weatherman by trade, so he's actually a physicist. So that's kind of how we got into all that sort of stuff. Spooky Action as a concept obviously influenced us as a band. How much that actually comes across, I don't really know. But like I said, that's probably more Steve's area of expertise than mine, to be honest, with that specific sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Another friend of ours, a guy called Mike Bearpark, who's plays in a band called, do you know No Man?
Yeah.
And Jason Tim Bonus's band, and he's a scientist as well. So if you get those two guys together, there's a real, they to be honest, it's beyond me. It's beyond my expertise. But those guys are just wow. It's impressive, but I don't really understand what they're on about, to be honest.
Yeah, science and math. They call it math music, and all that going on. So it's funny that you guys are part of that a little bit too. With
a lot of the music I'm into as well. I mean, I'm into a lot of stuff where you get like multiple lots of systems type music where you've got one time signature on one guitar and one time signature on the other guitar, and subdividing time signatures and things like that, which is that off-kilter, multiple time signatures, multiple realities sort of thing. So that was kind of a crossover into that as well, when we were trying out the multiple time signatures as a parallel to potential parallel universes, which is, I suppose, something within the music that correlates with that theme as well. But like I say, Steve's the expert, not me.
Well, it doesn't sound like it's that far over your head. Talking about it a little bit there made sense to me.
I understand, Bill. I can talk about it, but when one of your friends, a couple of your friends are real proper physicists, it's like, I understand the concept, but like I say, it's when your mate's a proper physicist, it's like, well, I can only do so much.
Stick to the guitar, just stick to that.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to. You don't when you know like, the proper experts in the field, you don't want to sort of mess up too much.
Yeah. Well, the new EP that came out in August here, it's called Magnet. Let's just say that you had a fairly decent turnout for sales on this one, yes?
Yeah, it was great. It sold out on pre-order before it came out.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it was, to be honest, when Spooky Action came out, it sold all right, but it's kind of one of those albums that's gradually, it just kept selling and kept selling. You didn't really notice that we'd done so many gigs and we'd done so much stuff, and I'd done a lot of solo shows, and I played with, as a band, we'd played so many gigs, and and on my own, I'd also have done, I've supported people from like Steve Rothery and IQ and all those sort of bands. And I think when you added all that up, I think we'd played to a lot of people, and we'd sort of, without realising it, just through hard graft and keeping going and doing lots and lots of stuff, we'd acquired more of an audience than we'd actually, really realised. So when that came out, it sold far more than we had any expectations of. It sold like twice as many as Spooky Action did week one. I can't remember we got the limited edition, but the limited edition sold out. Well, I thought we'd have it for months, and it sold out before it was even out. So we have a very loyal, very dedicated audience, which I'm massively grateful to. I'm constantly surprised by, but which fantastic. That people want to listen to it, and it's because I always listen to what we do, and I think this is quite odd music. But if you look at things like Ozric Tentacles, who are an instrumental rock band, really, or if you think about Explosions in the Sky, and I'm not saying we're particularly anything like those, but I think there is an appetite for instrumental music, and I don't think, one of the things people get put off by instrumental music is they think they're going to hear lots of guitar solo in and it'll get a bit boring. But I mean, hopefully what we do is quite thematic and melodic, and it's hopefully it's not too boring, and hopefully I think that's probably why people have probably gone with us a little bit more than some instrumental rock bands I've seen that it's just like basically they play a riff and then some bloke plays the guitar really fast over the top, and then another bloke plays the keyboards really fast. It's like, well, it's not very exciting, this, is it? I mean, there's a place for that, and that's the place for that is the Mahavishnu Orchestra. But if you're not as good as the Mahavishnu Orchestra, I can't really see the point of it. Or you're as good as Guthrie Govan, who's in my opinion, the best lead guitarist in the world at the moment. But you've got to be that good, you know what I mean? You've got to be that remarkable, that amazing.
I think it's something that's better for a live situation if you have that going on than if it's on record. You're just kind of sitting in your own your den or whatever with your headphones on and thinking, okay, when is the point going to be made to this? Whereas if you're live and experience, and you don't notice it as much.
It can be really exciting live, the sort of guitar solo thing and that. And I think it can be really exciting. And yeah, you're right. And it's just context really, but that's kind of. I think there's a lot of things you can say with the guitar that aren't necessarily about playing, really fast, and perhaps about, I think we're probably closer to a band like the Shadows, the instrumental rock band from the 60s, than we are Vinnie Moore or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're trying to do something that's quite melodic and organised, and I love Frank Zappa and things like that, and I love Napalm Death, but that's not what we're doing. We're kind of quite a melodic instrumental band, which is odd. Also, if everyone else is playing fast and playing, that sort of thing, perhaps the way to stand out is to do the opposite of that and always go against the tide a little and just try and do things that you're interested and excited by. So, although I'd be lying if I said I was actually doing that. I'm just doing the music I love, really, and I think the rest of the guys in the band are doing that as well. We're just trying to do music we love and having fun doing it, but that's it, really.
If you want to hear some of what makes those Crimson comparisons so common, you'll definitely hear it in this selection from Spooky Action. This one is called Heart. You all seem to embrace the EP as a form of releasing your work. So why is that?
Practical considerations, really. That we had 3 new songs, and we probably weren't going to get the next batches ready for this year, or it might be early next year, or it might be the year after. But we didn't want to disappear for 4 years between albums. So the EP was the perfect way to sort of keep people in people's minds, and hopefully make sure people didn't forget us. And we're doing a lot of gigs and stuff, so something to be able to sell at the gigs. And then people really liked it far more than we ever expected, which is fantastic. But it makes you think perhaps we should have done an album. There you go. If I was clever enough to, you can't second guess what people are going to be into, and you'll be able to you release something and it'll just work, and the Magnet EP just worked. And I like the EP format. I remember listening to like Dead Kennedy's EPs and Therapy, the band Therapy's EPs, and I like that sort of short, sharp shock format. But I like an album as well. I mean, I don't think I'd want to just do EPs anymore. We've done 3 EPs now.
Right.
They're really good for trying stuff out as well. Each EP's got slightly different material on it and slightly different sounds. So, so it's a nice little format to mess about with. Hopefully we'll be able to start doing them on vinyl as well soon, which is, I'd love to be able to do this on vinyl.
Now, as far as playing live, you performed recently at Arctangent. You mentioned that one already. I know you've got 1 or 2 more live dates coming up very soon, so could you tell everyone about that and maybe any other gigs you've got planned?
We've got a few interesting support slots that I'm not allowed to tell you about, because basically they don't come off if you tell people about them.
Right.
But we do Nice Weather for Airstrikes Festival in Brighton on the 19th of September. Then we're playing the Mighty Summer's End on the 3rd of the 10th, which is my friend's festival. And then we're playing JT Swords in Nottingham, and then we're doing the HRH Prog Festival. We're playing with Focus, which we're quite looking forward to. Focus are, the legendary Focus.
Right, well, they're past guests on my shows. Last year I had them
really?
place on. Yeah.
Well, nice.
Episode 050 for those of you who want to go back to the archives. So.
I should have a look. There's a Caravan playing, Arthur Brown's playing, the Enid are playing. My mate's band, the Enid. Curved Air, Solstice, which is Andy Glass, who's a phenomenal guitar player. Colin Edwin from the Porcupine Tree, and Lorenzo Feliciati playing a thing called Twinscapes together. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. It's weird, and Ian Anderson's doing a set of Jethro Tull machines, which will be as well. So, and also there's a sci-fi convention there as well, which you can go if you go to the Prog Festival. You get to go to the sci-fi convention as well, and it also there's like Brian Blessed and people like that there, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We've been really lucky that we've been embraced by Arctangent, where the headliners are Dillinger Escape Plan and Vessels and Cult of Luna and people like that, and then we can go and play with Focus and Ian Anderson, and there's not many bands lucky enough to be able to do that. So we've sort of fluked it. I don't know how we did it, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut and hope it continues.
Probably a wise man right there. Yeah, knock on wood, have handy.
Yeah, exactly.
One from the new EP Magnet now, the most recent in the series begun with Part 1. Here's the expansive Part 6, and to keep it just a bit confusing, it's subtitled The Eighth Circuit. How about your solo work or other projects? I mean, you have plenty of other things that you do. Anything to report on those fronts?
I've just done a track with Judy Dybel, who Judy used to be in Fairport, and she was in the early lineup of King Crimson, well, pre-King Crimson, right. King Crimson, various other things. She's lovely, Judy. I've just recorded some stuff with her. I did a solo album last year, but I haven't written anything for a new one for a while. I'm doing a couple of solo dates. I'm supporting Steve Rothery from Marillion, doing a solo gig, but that's sold out, so that'll be quite good. And I'm supporting a guy called John Gom, and I'm probably taking a bit of a break from that because I did sort of probably 50 solo gigs last year, and I probably won't do so many of those because I really want to focus on getting this new Fist and the Dead record out. And I'm having so much fun with the band and it's so much fun playing friends and stuff, so I'm probably going to focus on that for the moment. But I'm also doing a few session things at the moment. What have I done recently? A band called Kitten Pyramid. I played on one of their songs. And I've got a few session things coming up. I think I'm going to be on the new Shine Back album, which is my friend Simon's thing. Mm-hmm. Just a few things like that, really. And just if people ask me, I will do sessions and stuff. I'm on the new Gandalf's Fist album, the Mighty Gandalf's Fist. Mm-hmm. Basically, just my friends' records, really, the ones I play on most of the time. There was a stage where I was on putting out records all the time. I was playing on everybody's album and all that sort of thing, and basically it got too much. Too many gigs and too many sessions and I'd had years and years of no one asking me to do anything, and then people ask me to do stuff. You just say yes to everything because no one's ever asked you before. And so you just go, oh, yes, please. Yeah. And then you sort of realise that you haven't done anything for a year because you've been playing other people's records and doing all this stuff. So now I'm just focused on doing kind of my own thing or the odd bit of sessiony stuff, but just mostly the Fierce and the Dead because it's, like I say, I'm just enjoying it, so much fun doing it. And that's kind of, the end of the day, that's the important thing, isn't it? The love of the music and, the whole thing is, I think it's genuine then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Integrity, they call it.
Apparently. It's funny, you brought it around to a serious moment there and I was going to make a joke about how Matt Stevens now is kind of like Phil Collins was in the mid-'80s on everybody's stuff and quite ubiquitous. Seriously. There. But
it was getting like that. I remember there was one gig I did 2 gigs on the same day. Me and Andy Tillison. Do you know Andy Tillison?
Yeah. I know who he is. I haven't spoken to him, but yeah, I know who he is.
Andy Tillison. He's from the Tangent. Me and Andy were playing in a venue on one side of the road. Then I went across the road and did a gig with the Fierce and the Dead straight afterwards. And I was just thinking, I think I'm doing too much.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit of a clue. Tell everyone how listeners can find your music and where they can pick up all the good Fierce and the Dead merchandise.
Is this where I get to do the sales pitch? Okay.
Right, absolutely.
My website, the band's website is www.fierceandthedead.com, or my website is mattstevensguitar.com. But if you Google Fierce and Dead or Matt Stevens, and we come up. There's loads of stuff on there. There's free samplers and stuff, and there's the new Magnet EP, which I'm really pleased with. I'd like people to hear, so that'd be lovely.
Okay, the always enjoyable and quite furry Matt Stevens has been our guest for this show. You can grab the new Fierce and the Dead EP Magnet from your retailer of choice. I know that they're out there. Visit their websites. I'm sure they're on social media, too. You can immerse yourself in the cult, as I'm sure they would encourage you to do. Matt, it has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Mark. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Go to thefierceandthedead.com for all the info you need. Follow them on social media. And if you're in the UK, you can catch them at the upcoming Nice Weather for Airstrikes Festival from September 18th to 20th in Brighton, and then at Summer's End the weekend of October 2nd to 4th. Grab any of their releases from Bandcamp. Some of them are free or at barely any cost at all. And you'll find out why you should be in the cult, too. As for us on Progtopia, all past episodes can be found at progtopia.com, absolutely free, as can our sister roundtable podcast, The Prog Squad, also absolutely free. And we're on Facebook and Twitter in very easily findable ways. Next up for the show will be a report from the annual Prog Power USA Festival, so look and listen for that soon. In the meantime, thanks to Matt Stevens for stopping in, and thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time in a land called Progtopia.